Right, good evening everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Golden Goal Fantasy Football Podcast. In this particular one we're going to be covering Sky Sports Fantasy Football, and as always I'm joined by Sam. How are you getting on, mate?
Yeah, hey mate. Not too bad really. Just probably a so-so week. Sort of hung rank. It's all right. What about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. I like the same as you, really. I've made a couple of transfers, but nothing to set the world alight. And I think just the movement that people had last week on Chelsea players, I was probably just average, so I didn't really change my rank at all. In fact, I'm happy to talk through my team now.
Yeah, cool.
I made a couple of transfers, so I moved Heung-min Son on for Virgil van Dijk, and I also got rid of Jared Bowen for Thiago Silva as well, which proved to be quite a good move. And it's obviously seeing the team that it was. When did they play? They play on Sunday. Yeah, they played on Sunday. There was no Rudiger and no Reece James. My first instinct would probably be to buy Reece James, but considering he didn't play, I just felt like going for Silva. And then Son to Van Dijk, I just felt like a sensible move to play. I think there was a bit of a fixture gain for Liverpool. And yeah, Van Dijk's just been solid, hasn't he? And I think he's over 50% owned in the top 1K. So I think, I didn't own a Liverpool defender until that point. So I really needed one of them just to keep me up there. I'm currently 387th. I imagine that's quite similar to my rank of last week. And I've still got 4 transfers left. Basically, I'm holding on to one of them just to see what happens with Rudiger, really. And I think this week he's been pictured in training, so I'm quite positive about him.
That's good news for sure, that.
I'll just go player by player. So Nick Pope, well, he had a pretty worldly, didn't he? 11 points. Who they play? Was it Wolves?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Burnley kept a clean sheet, as you'd probably expect against a team like Wolves. Cancelo, he didn't get a clean sheet, but got double bonus, as he's capable of doing. Laporte, I think he was hooked off early, but thankfully got me some passing bonus. Rudiger didn't play, but I've got a couple of questions about him, and we'll probably talk about him a bit. But for me, I'm just gonna hold Rudiger until either we know a bit more about him or he plays again, because I just think Chelsea have so many fixtures coming up, and Rudiger is just such a solid pick that even if he misses the game against United, I think it's still worth holding on to him. And like I said, bought in Thiago Silva and Van Dijk, both got 10 pointers. I've held Rafinha since overhaul and had him as captain against Palace. I think he got tier 1 tackle, so better than a blank. Other midfielders are Saka, who obviously got a goal and assist against United. Looked really good in that game, by the way, and obviously on penalties now as well, which just makes him such a good option. Jacob Ramsey, I don't really care about his points, to be honest. As long as he keeps playing, I'm happy. And then Salah and Kane up front. I had Salah as my captain at the weekend. Did he get an assist, did he, against Everton?
Yeah.
And then Kane, unfortunately blanks, but whatever. He's Harry Kane. I'll probably captain him against Leicester, I'm thinking. But we'll talk about that as we move on. Got 4 transfers left. Just trying to work out how to use them, really, I think is the big play. I think I'm about average, really, in terms of transfers left. Nothing to set me apart from many other players. I think maybe taking out Rafinha to Eriksen to cover the United game is something I've been thinking about. But the rest of my team, I just don't know who I want to get rid of. Unless I get an injury, I'm quite content with it, to be honest. I don't know if you've got any suggestions for me, mate, but I'm quite happy.
No, I've got your team in front of me actually, and it looks really solid. Like Ramsey's got plenty of games; he's a good enabler. Kane and Salah. Sorry, we don't say anything about those boys. Rafinha is worth holding. I think Leeds need to win another game at least, so it's like a little bit of desire there from
I don't
Leeds.
even need to sell Rafinha, do I? It's a bit of a luxury that I can swap him out.
Having a look at the table earlier today. I think Leeds are still in danger. Like, I don't think they're going to go down, but I still think they're in danger, and I think they
need a win,
cannot be anywhere near. They can't even be on the little footwalk to the beach yet. They're like out in the car park. So another win will give them, the opportunity to get on the footwalk and down to the beach with like Southampton and all those guys. So I think having players that have got something to fight for is kind of cool. I think Pope just he's great to leave, isn't he? I'm well intent on having Pope to the end of the season. So yeah, your side looks good, Tom, and obviously Van Dijk, Liverpool. He's going to play every game to the end of the season, and he's back to his best, isn't he? So that was a good move. Cancelo, Laporte, don't say anything there, and I think Thiago Silva will play quite a bit as well, especially the fact they're out of everything but the FA Cup. So, yeah, you're absolutely right, mate. There's not really too much you need to do.
Yeah, my only concern is that because I've got Rudiger and Silva for the United game tomorrow. We're recording this on Wednesday. Yeah, if none of them play, I'm in a spot of bother. But even then, I can just use one of my 4 transfers to bring someone in, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if you will be though, because I don't know. Like, there's probably a lot of people in your boat with Rudiger, maybe just Rudiger or Rudiger and another one, which I know Silva was quite popular. So, I wouldn't get too worried about that. Just suss it tomorrow and see what the lay of the land is. I still think Chelsea need to win as well. I know obviously United are trying to chase, but I don't think Chelsea have completely and utterly got third nailed down either. So I think they need another win or so. Yeah, and obviously players want to play the FA Cup, so I still think they're quite a good pick in terms of teams, and they've got a nice little run, haven't they, to the end of the season? So, I'm happy to have a few Chelsea assets, as you'll see.
Speaking of that, I got your team up now, mate. So yeah, feel free to go through it.
So yeah, I'm a bit deaded really in terms of overall rank, but as I said to you off air, sort of my first and second team are top of the mini league I'm in, and it's a good bit of, potentially a little bit of money coming in for that. So happy days. I think I took out Gabriel, Bowen, and Rudiger over the last 2 game weeks. Only one last game week, and then the 2 before for Alonso, James, and then Gallagher. Gallagher was more like he allows me another move, basically. So it's more like he'll cover a captaincy, and he's also a bit of an enabler to the end of the season, although I feel like Palace are on the beach. So that was the only maybe negative to that move. So yeah, Pope, exactly what you said. I'm happy to have him to the end of the season. I think there could be a few more double-digit hauls coming his way. James, just bad luck because I had James and Alonso for the United game where they lost, but I think James picked up like bonus or whatever, and I was like, he'll probably have an explosive game or 2 before the end of the season, so I was totally fine with that. But then to miss out, he's just a little bit injury prone, isn't he?
Yeah, it's a shame. I won't go into the full details with the listeners, but we were having a bit of a sports science-based conversation before we started this pod. I'm feeling a bit for Reece James. I'm a bit worried he's going to become one of those injury-prone players, isn't he?
Yeah, hopefully the summer kind of is a good opportunity for him to work on areas that need addressing, and we can get like a fit and healthy Reece James for a prolonged period of time because he's a superb player. And the reason I got him in is just, as Liam Dorian said, he's not a massive bonus magnet, but he's just explosive for goals and assists, isn't he? And it's like they all come at once as well. So, if it's only a minor injury, let's see what happens. I can't really move him out anyway, so I'm kind of stuck with him to the end of the season. So it's a bit of a risk. Alonso, strangely, quite happy with Alonso so far, touch wood, because he's one of those players, isn't he? He's looked fairly solid.
Yeah, he's been
left
all right.
back.
Yeah.
I've seen him worse. A lot worse, and did he get man of the match against?
Might well have done. Yeah, he got an assist in man of the match and stuff. I'll just check. Yeah.
Cancelo, you talked about City, lot to play for, nailed, great player. Leave him in. Then I've got obviously Maddison, Gallagher, Saka, Barnes. I think I'll leave Saka and Gallagher and probably Maddison to the end of the season. The one move I have kind of got lined up is at some point is probably Barnes to a Liverpool defender. Similar to what you were sort of saying, Tom. I can afford actually anyone. If I take Barnes out, I can afford Van Dijk. So I'll probably look to make that move at some point. And then Salah, Kane and Tony up front. Obviously, Tony covers me for the United game. He was really unlucky against Spurs. He hit the woodwork twice. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
I've had him for a few weeks. Mate. Yeah, he's been a really good pick, and I think he's had 1 double-digit haul since I've had him, but I think he could have easily come out with 2 goals and shots bonus and man of the match against Tottenham. So a little bit unfortunate there, but with that team, I'm actually quite happy. Like I said, if I do a Barnes to say Van Dijk, I've got a really solid team to finish the season, and I'm more than happy to have that. The only thing there is obviously injuries, maybe to James and also Alonso. You never know what's coming with him. But apart from that, I'd take this team to the end of the season. So I'm sitting around the kind of high 900th position. So nothing of any kind, nothing notable. But we'll still, do everything correctly to the end of the season and just see where I finish.
Yeah, and you said you're winning your mini leagues as well, which is probably the most important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I was saying to you off air, wasn't I? Like last year, like my highest performing team at 170th, I think I finished. Didn't win any money, and then this year I've got kind of two teams in and around that thousandth and inside the top 2,000 with the second one, and they're sort of in the money. So it's just how it all goes, isn't it?
I thought I'd just quickly flash up, because it might be news to some people, just the average transfers remaining. I mean, it's nothing, that they don't change very much from the top 10 to the top 5,000. But yeah, we got top 10 on 3.7, top 100 on 3.8, top 1,000 on 4.2, and the top 5,000 on 4.4. So yeah, the average is about 4 left. I'm bang on average personally. What about yourself? Did you say how many transfers you had, and I missed it then, mate?
Yeah, I'm underneath now, so I'm like one or two in my first team, and then like 6 or 7 in my second team, I think. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, so I'm 1 in the first one, and then 5 in the second. So as I said, my final move there will probably be Barnes to Van Dijk, and just hope that no one gets injured. Hey ho. Yeah, and then that second team will just have a little bit of a play with it. Like went for Zaha as the captain the other night. Might go Ronaldo against Brentford. So yeah, like you said, they're all fairly similar, aren't they? And I think by the gauge of Twitter, everyone's in a similar boat there.
I was just looking at what the game week was called in Sky, so I got it right for the fixtures. It's game week 38. It's really confusing how Sky have done it, isn't it? Because I think they've counted the international breaks as a game week.
Yeah, they count non-game weeks. Yeah.
So just trying to get my terminology right. So we're looking at game week 38. Then is the upcoming game week, and obviously what I've counted the Man United Chelsea fixture as an extra one as well, because they play tomorrow. So hopefully this pot will go out before the actual fixture. So we just talk about that one first, if that's all right, mate. We got Man United at home to Chelsea tomorrow. I think you said you're sitting on Alonso and James. I'd be pretty confident that one of those is going to start, to be honest, mate. I imagine you're feeling the same.
Yeah, I think Alonso will start personally. James, I don't know, mate. Like what he was in training, did you say earlier?
Yeah, I saw unless it was a troll Twitter picture, right? Because that can happen. But I'm pretty sure I saw a picture of Rudiger and James together standing in training in full kit. So,
so just looking at the table now with that one, I feel like Chelsea are in third with 65 points. Arsenal are in fourth with 60, but played 33. So I feel like Chelsea need just one more win, and then that's probably third place. United are down in sixth, playing a game over Spurs and Arsenal. So if they've got any last hope of top 4, they have to win tomorrow. So I don't know what your thoughts are there, Tom, on the United Chelsea game.
Honestly, I think as a Man United fan, I completely agree with you about the like parameters of the game and how much they need to win it. But the mentality of that team is just so on the floor at the moment that I just don't think they'll play very well. They had the opportunity to show up against Liverpool, and they were rubbish. Same against Arsenal. They were a little bit better against Arsenal, but I still think if they played like that against a really good team like Chelsea, they'd get battered. So yeah, I see a Chelsea might even keep a clean sheet in this one, to be honest. Yeah, that's just my thoughts as a pessimistic United fan anyway.
So you'll be going...
So I've got Rudiger and Silva, so flip a coin between them if they both play, but I think, it'd probably be Silva if they do both play, I think, just because he's a bit more nailed for passing. And in terms of attacking stats, I think they're probably quite comparable. But I just fancy Thiago Silva always seems to nick a goal from a corner, doesn't he? He's pretty good in the air. So
probably due, isn't he, actually?
And in the centre of that back three, I'm sure they'll both get tier 2 passing against United. But in the centre of the back three, you just know Silva makes the most passes. He'll probably make over 100 passes in this game.
Yeah.
And then Saturday the 30th, thankfully, well, like in Fan Team, which we're going to talk about, we don't have the luxury of knowing if Salah plays, but in Sky, Newcastle-Liverpool is the early kickoff, and yeah, we get to see the teams for that in Sky. We got Wolves and Brighton, Watford, Burnley, Southampton, Palace, Villa against Norwich, and then Leeds against Man City. Yeah, I think instincts, if Salah is playing, I will just captain him in Sky. And I think even if Salah doesn't play and Van Dijk does, I'll probably just go Van Dijk. Even with Man City as a late kickoff, I think I'll just captain a player I know is playing.
Yeah, I'm not really. I think we were talking about this as well, weren't we? We did sort of go over all this in quite detail. I mean, just the options aren't really there, are they? And so therefore, I'll probably stick it on Salah, or I might look to bring in Van Dijk by that point. To be honest with you, I should have already done it from Barnes because you would have had the 2 games. But yeah, if Salah starts, I'll probably stick the armband on Salah. I just think it's going to be a really, really tight game.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not
the easiest fixture for them, is it?
No, I think it's quite a tricky. I think this is one of Liverpool's trickiest fixtures to finish the season. This and Tottenham is a bit of a banana skin, especially after Europe tonight. So I think probably a Liverpool player looking at that is, I think probably, a City asset's probably the best option, but you just don't know who starts. And if you see Salah on the team sheet, it's going to be difficult. Could I just make a little case here, Tom, for Nick Pope?
Yeah, you definitely can. I was
that
also
go for it. Sorry. An 18-pointer, couldn't it? Sorry, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I like that, Nick Pope. Watford don't seem too shy of scoring a goal, but yeah, they're Watford. They're going down, so yeah, I don't hate that shout at all. I was also going to try and fight Cancelo's corner, to be completely honest, purely because he's banned in the Champions League, so he hasn't played in a week. So, I mean, 99% sure he'll actually start against Leeds. So that offers you a little bit of a differential against Salah. It's just whether you're willing to go against Salah, really, especially if he plays. But like we said, is Newcastle an ideal fixture anymore? Like back at the start of the season, they were getting battered every week. But right now, they are pretty hot. So, yeah, I think one to think about for sure.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of people who don't like to back the early kickoff as well. I just cannot see it being a haul.
If Liverpool win this game, I think it'd be by 1 or 2 goals maximum.
Yeah, I mean, as a Liverpool fan, I think it's going to be so close. Yeah, I've got a bit of a bad feeling about it. So, yeah, I think the options there are a Liverpool asset, Pope, or like a Cancelo. I think you're absolutely right on Cancelo there, Tom.
Yeah, and the thing to say as well about Leeds that I've noticed, under Bielsa, they really did give the top teams some real trouble. But I just think the way they set up under their new manager, I wouldn't say they're like almost like every other sort of bottom half Premier League team, but they sort of are. They don't play the kind of football that a top half team or top team like Man City would necessarily fear anymore. So I just feel like Man City could turn them over quite easily now.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. I don't think Man City will absolutely run through them, but they always have the capability of doing that. Manchester City, I mean, you watched last night, they were superb. So, yeah, it's always a worry when you see Man City v Leeds, who have been like open against better teams because they've been expansive going forward and therefore, leaking goals at the back. But they have been tighter under the new manager, haven't they? So, yeah, I could see a Cancelo. Cancelo's got many routes to points, hasn't he? So I could see a Cancelo return or 2 there. He's a safe option.
Yeah, I was just looking at the ownership as well quickly in the top 1K. Salah's on 95 and Cancelo on 88. So I think it would be pretty split and close on Saturday. But yeah, if we get a poll out on our account or someone else manages it, that'll be a useful poll to look at on Saturday morning, I think. Might even do a spaces as well if the team's a bit confusing. We'll see. Sunday,
Tom?
Yeah, Sunday 1st of May, Spurs against Leicester, Everton, Chelsea, West Ham, Arsenal. I saw a tweet saying about Harry Kane's amazing goal-scoring record against Leicester. The fact that they're playing on Thursday in the Conference League, probably going to be prone to a bit of rotation. And the way that Spurs are really quite good on the counter, I really fancy Spurs in this one. I don't know about yourself, mate.
Yeah, we were chatting about it, weren't we? And I think You're absolutely right. I think Leicester haven't been fantastic all season anyway. I know they've got a few of their better defenders back, but their eyes are firmly on Europe, aren't they? They like to try and play expansive football, which then plays potentially into the hands of Son, Kulusevski, and Kane on the counter attack. I did get burnt, as I said to you, wasn't it last year or last season when I backed Harry Kane against Leicester on the early, and then Bruno went nuts against Leeds on the last fixture of the day last season. So it's a little bit of a hangover from that for me personally, but I think Harry Kane is a good option. Yeah, I don't really fancy anything from Everton, Chelsea, really. As in for any of the players that I've got, Saka could be an option against West Ham, who are also European focused, aren't they, as well? But maybe for me, the standout there probably is a Son or a Kane.
And then Monday the 2nd, quite an interesting, because I think quite a lot of people will buy a player for this game or will own someone. Monday the 2nd of May, we've got Man United and Brentford. I know you've already got Tony. My plan currently is to get rid of Rafinha for Eriksen. I don't know. I'm still a bit iffy as to whether I'll do it, really, as to whether it's actually a big enough gain for a transfer. Or I could go Kane to Ronaldo, but would I want to sell Harry Kane? I don't know. One to think about, really. I think Monday I'm completely open to seeing how the weekend goes and then making a captaincy decision on that, really.
Yeah, I'll be on Tony purely because I have Tony. I don't massively expect any massive haul, but United have been pretty poor at the back. Well, just poor in general. But Ronaldo has, when he's been playing, been their kind of little shining light, isn't he? So I'll be bringing Ronaldo in that second team. As I said to you before we started this, like on that little late push on that other team, I'll go probably to Ronaldo on that night and see what happens. But in my team that we focused on, the sort of first team, I'll be on Tony. I wouldn't be object to skipping that one if people didn't have the moves or whatever.
I won't give anything away because I'll make sure you guys visit his Twitter account. But Paul McAnulty put out a poll earlier today as to what people were going to do on Monday or their current thoughts. So have a look at his Twitter account and see what the poll's saying as well if you're interested.
I did have a little nosy on it earlier today just to see what everyone else was planning.
Right then, let's have a quick look at the questions. Yeah, as always, thank you to everyone on Twitter for well, most of these are regulars as well. So thank you all of you guys for listening every week and submitting your questions. Really, really appreciate it every time. So first up, SkyFF Wilson. He asks us, with only 2 transfers left, should he skip the United Brentford game? He says he's fairly happy with his team at the moment and not sure that he actually wants a player from that game. A possibility, he says, could be Bruno. Oh God, I don't want to say his name because he's absolutely ruined me. But Bruno Guimaraes to Eriksen due to a tougher Newcastle run-in. Yeah, with 2 transfers, would you make a move to cover that game? Do you think?
Well, I was the idiot that brought in Gallagher, and I mean that wasn't. I would always say like if it's not going to be an explosive player, then maybe there's no. Yeah, you want this explosive standout, don't you? I made that move to allow Van Dijk back in, but probably not. No, but again, it's his team. Do what he wants to do. I would look at if it was me, I would just have that sneaky suspicion that Ronaldo could do something. He's looked quite good recently, hasn't he? When he's played, unless of course that allowed his final move to be something else that he had lined up, but. It's 2 moves, isn't it? So I think it seems a bit of a... Yeah, he could get away probably with skipping that, not getting nailed, basically. And if someone was going to nail him, it probably would be Cristiano Ronaldo, wouldn't it?
I couldn't, honestly, mate. You've answered that perfectly. Exactly how I would. Yep. Probably wouldn't do a move with only 2 left. And if I was to move to anyone, it'd be Ronaldo, just because he's got the highest potential of all. And given that Bruno missed a pen against Arsenal, I think he's probably back on penalties too. So
The thing is there with that is Eriksen could well return a 5 or an 8-pointer, but Bruno Guimaraes has been in a little purple patch himself. So, you're going to get the double points.
It's a luxury,
on that,
isn't it?
Yeah, and they're probably going to be similarly matched towards the end of the season. So, yeah, whereas Ronaldo, like you just said, could absolutely go off with 2 goals and a man of the match shots bonus, and he's suddenly hauled, and you've shot yourself up up the ranks. And Cristiano Ronaldo is someone who I could see even, not playing very well, is quite happily holding towards the end of the season as well. So you get that, and then whatever other returns you get. And he's always a good captain option, isn't he, Tom? Regardless, like your main option drops out with an injury, Ronaldo's a great fullback, or even as a great option in his own name. So yeah, I think he's the one player, isn't he?
And then second question on the similar topic, just asking whether Brentford is United is a skip. He has a different player though. He says he's debating swapping Gallagher for Mbuemo. I don't think I'd personally do that. But what about yourself?
If I had loads of moves, maybe. Again, I don't think it's going to result in a really explosive return. Brentford are safe, aren't they, as well? They've had a good season. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to come away with a 20 to 30 pointer as a captain. So it could be a skip.
And then a really good question from FPL Spartans. He says, as we near the end of the season, what have been the best and worst decisions that you've made in Sky? And he also says, excuse me, also, assuming the game is the same next season, what, if any, would you do differently in your game style? I'm happy to just talk off a couple.
Yeah.
I don't know if this sounds, I don't want to sound cocky with this, or, I'm only 380th or whatever, so I'm nowhere near winning it. But honestly, I cannot think of a decision that I've made this season that I would not do again. Like, I just feel like I've been really unlucky on some of the crucial 50-50 captains. Maybe in itself, that's a lesson, because I'll probably, my main one is going for Antonio instead of Bowen, and I think that's cost me 60 or 70 points, which would have me right in the top 100 if I went the right way with that. I think, just probably verging away from the most popular captain on particular single game days where the captaincy wasn't split. And also, I'd say after overhaul, I was quite slow to get Jacob Ramsey in, and I think those that got him in really benefited. So I think the key lesson is when there's a properly outstanding, either a cheap enabler or someone who's just playing particularly well, it's just not to be scared to make a transfer and bring them in, because you make the gains from getting on good players early on. I think that's my couple of points.
Yeah, nice, Tom. I really like that. I agree with a lot of points there. I think my biggest error was not. I think I've missed captaincy twice this season, which I don't think I missed any captaincies last season. But I missed Mo Salah's hat-trick against United. So I didn't set the armband on him. That, for me, is probably one of my biggest errors, because what did he get that day? So 24 points, something like that.
He only got an assist, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and then probably man of the match shots bonus. So it's a minimum 23, 24 pointer. And I had Salah, so that would have been another 24, 25 points on my leaderboard for just click of a button. So pretty frustrated with that. I've made personally some really poor decisions, just 50-50s that have gone the wrong way. So you kind of mentioned it there, Tom, like an Antonio over Bowen, for example. I've done the equivalent. And actually, if I reflect on last season, I made a lot of very, very good captaincy decisions and a lot of very, very good 50-50 calls, and ended up finishing really quite highly. So just had the other side of variance and some poor decisions go against me. And then I think I almost, don't want to say gave up too early, but realised I wasn't really going to push things too much further, and just ended up having a bit of a play more than anything with potentially players that I probably wouldn't do if I was in, say, Tom's position. That's kind of where I'm sat with it. What's your thinking, Tom, on that second part of the question there?
Yeah, what would I do differently? I think it goes back to my point of hopping on players early. Probably because I think, unless the game changes, we're going to have about 3 game weeks, and then there's going to be an overhaul, isn't there? So I think in that post-overhaul, first overhaul period, I think it's identifying, the best enablers from those first 3 games and just getting them in. Because the worst that could happen is you've got to use a transfer to get rid of them if they don't pay off. But otherwise, it's going to be a bit, I just feel like that's the way to go, is to use those first sort of 3 games as a citer to work out who those best enablers are, and then really hop on them for the post-overhaul period. That's what I'm going to try and do. In terms of using my transfers, etc.,
Similar.
I wouldn't change it. I've got 4 left now. I've been pretty much average for transfers all season. I've not done anything fancy with that, and I feel quite comfortable. It's really just quickly hopping on the best players in the game, and I've been a bit slow to get them this season, I think.
I think that's solid advice, and that's something that I wanted to do better within my game. Is exactly that. Is hop on those players, no matter what your opinions of them. If they're in a bit of a purple patch, then just bringing them in, and especially if they're enabler as well, they allow other things to happen. I think what I do is, I know this has been talked about already, but is use transfers earlier. I think there's this whole thing about not using transfers till the end and all that sort of stuff, but doesn't matter really when you use them. It's actually the decision making behind using them. Is that right? Yeah, yeah. And the result that you get, 20 points is 20 points, whether it's in September or if it's in May. I think Tom Powell in our group, who's top, was he top? Well, he's top 50, isn't he? Probably higher top. He has been in first and second and things, and he was talking about having used them earlier on to get him up into those higher ranked positions. And I think potentially with next year looking like, again, we don't know what's going to happen with COVID and the variants that are going to change, but you'd think it's going to, again, be even more structured and more normal than it has been this year, and that the amount of single game days and chops and changes and cancellations won't be as much. Obviously, we have no guarantees of that, of course. And with the 2 overhauls, Tom, I think the point you just made about looking over the first 3 weeks, all of us engaged managers do that, and we all do that second half, and then we all chat on Twitter and we go on the pods and we do this, and we all end up looking exactly the same, bar the odd player, and it's quite tough I've found it quite tough to gain rank through that. So I feel like maybe a slightly earlier push, but with the right opportunities, with switching players for a prime captaincy instead of just holding and waiting, is potentially a good option. I might look at that with one of the teams and see how that goes.
Yeah, mate, I can't argue with any of that. That's perfectly reasonable, yeah. And obviously our answers are personalised to each of us, aren't they? So it's not like anyone can disagree.
Yeah, mate, exactly.
Gordon Bell, regular listener. Thank you, Gordon. You always ask us a question. Really, really appreciate it, mate. Slightly different question, but sort of relates to the same point. He says, how do you guys handle a single match day when you don't already have a player? So Paul Gordon got quite unlucky. He said he brought in Mitchell ahead of last night for a fixture gain to cover off the captaincy, only for Mitchell not to play when I needed him most. And he's just saying it's a big lesson learned. I mean, it's a tricky one, this, because I remember it was my first proper season taking it seriously last season. I was listening to, because I think at the time, the only podcast for Sky I knew was the Hub one. And I think Dan Cox was saying, it might have been Wan-Bissaka or something. He brought him in really early and ready for a single match day, and then he didn't play. And he said he was just, if he saw a single match day that he needed to bring someone in for, that he just wouldn't make the move until the night, because it just always come back to bite him. I think the only caveat to that is when there's a fixture gain, like Gordon says here. I think if you can see that a player plays a significant amount more fixtures than another one and he has a single game day, I think that's a perfectly warranted transfer. And I think, to be honest, Gordon, if I don't know the fixture gain that Mitchell had, but say it was like a 4-for-1 over someone else, right? I think that's a good transfer, and you've just got unlucky personally. But if there's no fixture gain and you're just planning for a single game day a few weeks in advance, I wouldn't make the move until the night personally.
Yeah, I ditto that. I also think, going back to the question, we all get suckered in. I do time and time again on a poor player that isn't renowned for returns, but you get the itchy trigger finger, the FOMO, and you bring in someone who's subpar on the night, who really is probably going to get you at max a 5-pointer, 10-pointer as captain from a team that's not very good, and you still go for it. And that's one of my things I've done this season. And I'd like to think now, Tom, we can remind ourselves this time next year that when there's a Palace versus Brighton on a bloody, Monday night, not to bother, or a Villa, it's just two sort of poor team, yeah, but whatever it is. Yeah, and especially if you just said if there's no fixture gains on that as well, either side, then, is that really best spent? Probably not. Whereas you might get an opportunity for a 2 or 3 for 0 on Harry Kane at some point, and yeah, the chances of a more of an explosive return are much higher. So that's my thinking on single match days. I just think the little thing that makes me do it is like looking at it and going, oh, he could. You know, Gallagher had one, didn't he, earlier in the season where he's like 2 goals against someone. And there's always that little thing in your minds like sod's law if you don't bring in that particular player that they're going to then go off. And I think that's the only thing that sort of makes me um, bring someone in. I love Paul McNulty sort of thinking like an hour before kickoff what he says, just switch off Twitter, go out for a walk or whatever, and then sort of think through it sort of sensibly, and then come back. And if you still think you want to make the move, then make the move. But I think maybe I get suckered into that. I'm in the group chat and on Twitter and seeing it all. The next thing I've made a move. So I'd love to be able to avoid those average players, bringing them in.
And then final question from Bushy. I might have addressed something similar on the last pod actually, but he asked us if our teams stay injury free for the rest of the season, how many transfers are we going to save until the final day? I think we said this on the last pod, but personally, I really don't want to be in a position where I've got a transfer to use on the final day. I want my team to be just completely set for that final day of the season without having to use a transfer. I just feel
It's
like
liberating, isn't it?
God, you're going to be so annoyed, aren't you? If the player you take out, unless they're injured, then fair enough. But the player that you take out then hauls and the player you brought in blanked and it's only 1 week and it's the end of the season, you're going to be kicking yourself. I feel like on that last week, you want to leave yourself with as few decisions to make as possible.
Just captaincy on that final day.
Exactly.
Well, as you know, I've only got the one left anyway, and I intend to bring Van Dijk in. I think it's just going to be really liberating for me just to be able to go, right, all my transfers are done. The single match days are probably covered now, as far as I know, and with the City and Liverpool game being chucked in, owning City and Liverpool, I would have them covered. Just nice feeling just to be able to know I'm done, and then just letting the quality of the players then decide the destiny of my finish. So yeah, that's the way I look at it as well, Tom.
Nice one. Anything else you want to go through at all? I think that ends us quite nicely there.
Yes, mate. All good. Yeah, great pod.
Yeah, as always, thanks everyone for watching after our couple of weeks hiatus last week. Yeah, had some really nice comments and likes and stuff on our last video. So yeah, really appreciate it. And yeah, would appreciate it if you could do the same again for this one, please, if you liked it. And yeah, we'll catch you next week for some more Sky Sports fantasy football content. See you later.
Thanks for watching, guys. See you all next week.